Today's video is about the biggest career mistake that I've ever made. My name is Adam Ross Nelson, and I'm a data scientist. This mistake wasn't one that lost me a promotion or cost me my job, but it is one that held me back, in many ways, for a while. By sharing this story, I hope that I can help others avoid similar mistakes. When I first made this mistake, when I made this mistake for the first time and I was able to realize it in a new way, I was early in my data science career, but I was late in my overall career altogether. I became a data scientist later in my career. I've had overall probably a half dozen different careers. Not jobs, careers. I know what it means to transition from one job to another successfully, and what it means to transition from one career to another successfully. Most recently, I've been a data scientist. This is the story of how I realized I was making this mistake in the role of a data scientist. What I have on the screen now for you is live footage of a data scientist who is in their first few days or weeks of a job. This data scientist is new to the organization, and the organization is new to having data scientists. The organization has never had data scientists before. And here's the data scientist talking with a senior leader, and in this case, the CEO of the organization. And the CEO says, "Welcome to the team. Can you help us predict what users will make a purchase?" This is a classic question that data scientists can do a really good job of answering for a lot of different type of organizations. And the data scientist says, "Thanks. I think I can help with that. I have some ideas, and I'll get started right away." A few weeks later, the data scientist has been working really hard on this problem, trying to solve this important business problem in a way that'll be meaningful for the organization. Basically, trying to predict user behavior, trying to predict consumer behavior. And eventually the scientist comes to a conclusion and says something like, "I think this logistic ensemble model does the trick. There's a low false positive rate, there's a low false negative rate, and everything seems to be working out really well." After that, the scientist takes the results to the CEO and says, "I think I've solved the problem." The scientist says, "Thanks for trusting me with this project. This logistic ensemble model checks out." The CEO raises an eyebrow, looks at the scientist and says, "I'm happy with the result. Did you try machine learning?" So, of course, the punchline here is that the data scientist didn't represent their work in the terms that the audience was expecting to hear. Of course, logistic ensemble modeling is a form of machine learning. It's one of the many tools and techniques available to data scientists when you're trying to predict a binary outcome. How I realized this mistake was not at the meeting. It was much later. It was actually months, years later, when a colleague of mine asked me from another department, another division in the organization, said, "When do you think we're going to start using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science?" And I said, "Wait a minute, we've been using all of these. We've been using all of these all along for a very long time now." That was when I realized that I had made a mistake. I had made a mistake by mischaracterizing, underreporting the work that I was doing for the organization. Here are some of the things that I think are the important takeaways for you and others. In other words, here's how you can probably work on avoiding this mistake. So the first thing is be clear and vocal with others about your efforts. Be clear and vocal with others about your efforts means taking time to communicate in as many modes of communication as possible. Talk about your work on Slack, talk about your work on email, talk about your work on white papers, talk about your work on memos, talk about your work at presentations. One of the best techniques that I found that worked for me was to organize a semi-regular series of brown bags. And this was something that, I'll do another video on this, but this was something that I wasn't sure folks would be interested in early on. Who wants to go sit in the conference room, listen to the data scientists talk about model validation? Nobody wants that, at least so I thought. As it turns out, most of these brown bags had standing room only in the conference room. Anyway, do this communication in as many modes as possible. If you're really brave, find ways to connect via social media with your coworkers. Make videos about your work. Make videos about your work in order to expose your coworkers to the work that you're doing. The key is to find modes of communication that you know you will be heard. And if you're not sure what modes of communication will be most effective, ask. Ask others in the organization. Where do you hang out online? Where do you hang out in the office? Where do you hang out? What do you spend your most time on? Is it Slack? Is it the Wiki? Is it Atlassian? Is it Jira? Find ways to use those mediums to communicate with your colleagues. The next takeaway, the next really important thing to know is that words matter. So the example that I gave earlier in this video, the live footage of that data scientist talking with that CEO, this was a failure of words. The data scientist chose the wrong words. The data scientist probably thought, since I know this data scientist is loosely based on me and my personal experience, I can tell you, the data scientist thought he was doing everyone a favor by using the technical words, the very specific technical words that described exactly how the data scientist solved the problem, instead of the more general catch-all phrases, artificial intelligence, machine learning. That was a mistake. It was important to use the words that the audience was expecting to hear. In this case, I say, meet people where you find them. In my case, I failed to meet colleagues where they were because they were expecting to hear predictive analytics. I hit them with supervised machine learning logistic regression ensemble technique. I wrongly thought that I would be demystifying the work. I was wrong. I actually, instead of demystifying the work, I convoluted the work. So to avoid this mistake, listen for clues about the terms and phrases your audience will recognize before you begin speaking about your work. Use terms and phrases your audience will recognize. Introduce new terms and phrases with extreme caution and extreme care and a really good explanation. But you also have to introduce those new terms and phrases very carefully, and I would say sparingly. Your audience doesn't necessarily have time to learn new terms and phrases. They want to work with the tool set that they already have, and it's your job to translate your work to their work. The last one is history repeats itself. So one of the things that I enjoy most is the opportunity to talk with others who are transitioning into data science later in their career, just like I did, or transitioning into data careers from other areas, or moving around within the data field, or moving up within the data field. And this is important this is an important one. For anyone who's transitioning a lot, transitioning recently, or transitioning soon in the future, keep this in mind. History repeats itself. And in my case, as I look back on my previous careers, I know I've made some mistake in those careers as well. I should have learned this in those careers and not repeated this very same mistake here in data science. So think about what you have learned in your career all along. Think about the non-technical aspects of your work. Also think about communication, and think about maybe some mistakes that may have happened related to your communication. Actually, if you have stories, put it in the comments. Tell me about your stories. This is the kind of mistake that professionals in any line of work can make, technical or otherwise. To avoid this mistake, learn from your past, or you will be destined to repeat it. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you had a little bit of fun, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. Don't forget, you're more ready than you think you are. Hit subscribe, check out these other videos, and let's connect. I look forward to being in touch.